Hello, lovely podcast people. This podcast is super off the cuff. It's come from a question I received this morning. And it's a common question I get, that I've got many times over the years. And for some reason, I instantly just thought, this would be worthwhile, a little discussion on the podcast, because I genuinely feel like there's an element of talking about this that could help lots of you, or at least, unfortunately, I'm not going to give you some direct, easy answers, but, as with anything, this podcast isn't necessarily easy listening other than the jokes. It does force you to think a bit deeper. It doesn't give you exact answers of, just blend up this celery juice and it will cure your, I was going to say cancer there. It's a bit morbid, isn't it, that it's so horrific that people are saying stuff like this. There's some new freak on the internet, some juice guy. I've not looked into it, but all the memes are coming out. Some juice weirdo who's saying that he, that he can cure cancer with some juice that he's selling. Again, this stuff has happened before. Fortunately, one guy, I think, was fined maybe $100 million and maybe had to serve some jail time. And he killed people. His advice killed people. He was one of these alkaline diet gimps, as I call them. And he was telling them that they should stop their traditional therapy. They should go to his clinic. This is off topic, isn't it? It's a bit morbid. It's horrible. But I hope that some of you listening will realize that this is why the evidence-based movement is so important. And this is why opinions don't matter and don't count, and you're not entitled to make up your own facts. They're saying you're entitled to your own opinions, you're not entitled to your own facts. And when you start stating your opinions, or even just the way you eat, I eat an alkaline diet, fine, do it, but no one cares and no one asked. So anyway, he was telling them that he would make their body alkaline, it would kill the cancer, and then they would be healed, and then they died. And these people were selling their homes to pay to go to his retreat thingy, paying him many thousands of dollars, I believe. Anyway, and then he complained he'd been fined too much, the fact that he had killed someone. It's disgusting. Anyway, off topic. Where was I? Deep thinking. Gimp with the juices and stuff. Oh my goodness, how did I get there? Helping you with advice. My goodness. Anyway, the point of this podcast, the topic is giving advice to friends. And I suppose this is where it's come from, is people seeing stuff on the internet. This individual this morning messaged me about a family member who was being taken in by some very bad advice for an ailment that they have, relatively serious, but not necessarily immediately life-threatening, as is the case in some of the stuff I just said there. And essentially it was like, how do I explain this? I have good knowledge. I can, talk about nutrition and fitness and stuff. I've got some basic understanding. They didn't say this exactly, but even if you have some basic understanding of science or research methodology or anything. And their thing was, I'm reaching out to you, Martin, because I need to get across to them that this isn't going to work and it's a waste of their time and X, Y, Z. And, even with my current knowledge, it seems I haven't been able to debunk this well enough to make them listen. And that is the crux of this podcast. Working with family members, even in a professional capacity, I advise many people, or MNU students, people I mentor within our Mac Nutrition Mentoring Lab, to, as much as possible, steer clear from working with family. Unfortunately, sometimes those are the ones we want to help, but there's a difference also with wanting to help someone and working with someone. So if a close friend, lots of close friends, family, can you just give me some advice on this? And then the notorious thing that I get told by professionals is, they just don't listen to me. Well, for a start, very often people don't apply free advice. They don't value it because it's free, and it's an unfortunate thing. I feel like I've said this before, actually. My free content online is life-changing, and it has changed many lives. But for instance, some of the information that I put out on PCOS that's now huge in the industry and everyone's following and now copying, until I put a price on it, and then my talk, my PCOS talk was £45. It's always just sat on the website. It's just sat there. It's not something I push as a particular product. I don't really push any products, but I then sort of got to a point where I thought, the industry needs to hear this. This can really, really change lives. How can I get people to listen? And then I obviously teamed up with Verity, the PCOS charity, and then made it £2. And thousands of people then ended up buying this talk that was already there and available. Now, I don't think for life-changing advice, £45 really isn't that much. You know what I will do? Just because I'm talking about it. What shall I do? If you go to my Instagram and you click the link in my bio, I will put there a link to the PCOS talk. And I said this to my staff, and maybe this is already happening, like internally, if anyone ever emails us and says, where's that PCOS talk? Can I get hold of it? It's still there, but it's £45. But I've said to them, just give it to people for £10. I don't want people paying full price for it, sort of thing. £45 isn't going to be a game changer for me in terms of a product that I never push. And so therefore have it for £10, just because, again, I feel like making people pay that small amount will just get them to flip in, actually watch it and implement it. Anyway, where was I? Go to my link in the bio in my Instagram, click it, you will find a link to the PCOS talk, and it will be £10 instead of £45. Right, where was I? Talking to friends. Here's the deal. If you are the one taking the first step to help someone, it is highly likely it's going to be ignored. It is almost certain it will be ignored if you are contradicting their current status quo or their current belief. There's this technique called motivational interviewing, which is fantastic in many settings, so it's used regularly in things like smoking cessation and maybe overconsumption of alcoholism, where realistically the old school medical method is, this is wrong with you, you need to do this, go and take these tablets, go and change this lifestyle habit, done. But that person doesn't want to. They don't want to quit smoking. They're not coming to that clinic to be told, stop doing something that's a habit that they enjoy even. I say clinic, whatever, doctor's appointment, wherever. So motivational interviewing is a different technique to essentially try and elicit an individual's own motivations. So getting them to come up with ideas and reasons of why it would be beneficial for them to do that. And it's not like, right, let's sit down. It's not done in a boring way. It's essentially someone coming and saying, I've got this horrible cough, for instance, and then it's a case, well, it's smoking. Well, can you give me something for the cough? And not going, it's not done in, I want to say, a babyish way of like, right, everyone, let's come up with reasons that we should do more steps each day and whatever. It's a discussion, it's a conversation, but not doing certain things, which is what you will naturally do as a husband, wife, sibling, daughter, son, mother, father. You shouldn't do that because, well, you should stop. Well, if that's happening, then just do this. In motivational interviewing, that's called the writing reflex. And what it does is it almost every time causes someone to defend their status quo. It puts them in defensive mode rather than a proactive situation. Instantly they start wanting to defend. But I like XYZ, but I don't have time to do those steps. But what am I going to do to socialize at the pub, etc., etc. Rather than coming up with reasons that they are empowered to do so, that they are the master of their own destiny, that they are able to change things, that they want to be able to look a certain way or feel a certain way or play with their children or be fit enough to do certain things, etc., etc. And in some situations, one thing I do want to touch on is desperation as well. In this instance of this person asking me the question today, there was a level of desperation. And people will believe silly things in times of desperation, and it's why people prey on those people, because it's an easy target to make money, unfortunately. It's horrible, but it's the world we live in, unfortunately. So likewise, if that person is in desperation and they're believing something silly because they want to give themselves hope, you are again the bearer of bad news. You are coming in and you are crushing hope. You're not... They don't see you the way you see your actions. They don't see you stepping in and going, no, don't believe that. There's better things you can do. Or often is the case, in really horrible situations where there's almost nothing you can do. In certain things, fibromyalgia comes up a lot in the mentoring lab and nutrition around fibromyalgia. Obviously, a really, really, really difficult thing for people to live with every day of their life. And people get desperate and people start looking for cures and potions, alternative therapies, because the medical system essentially, I don't want to say fails them, but that's how they feel. It fails them because it's not cured them or given them, so often people just want to feel heard. I'm trying to think. We have one of our graduates working with someone, and I can't remember, sorry, what the exact thing is, but the impact of nutrition in this situation, it might be a neurodegenerative disease. That does ring a bell. Anyway, one of my comments was, what you can give this person, their early stages of this thing is, and they want to change, that motivational interviewing is often used when people aren't at a stage of the sort of readiness to change where they're really actually being proactive. But this person is at a stage, they want to change, they are motivated, they want to do things. And so I've said, one thing, just making them feel heard, giving them that thing of like, you want to help and you will do, whatever is in your power to help, is really useful, and it will help that person. They can feel better about life and in themselves, and physically and mentally they will feel better through good nutrition. We know those things happen, but it might not tackle the exact disease state that we're discussing, and it might not have hugely profound impact, but it, over the next 10, 20, 30 years of their life, it very well might have a small impact. It's just not going to stop it or reverse it completely. Now, the problem is in, and this is really the crux of what we're talking about here, is with children. And there's, sorry, I'll finish my sentence before I jump ahead. With children, with family members, with parents, people wanting, I really want to get my dad to realize that the reason he feels that way, or get my dad to realize he's going to die sooner because he's doing X, Y, Z. I'm sort of recounting conversations I've had with people that are difficult. And the thing I would say, so I'll jump onto what I was saying about like with children. There's research that shows if you give more praise, like they eat it and you're like, well done, that's really good, oh, was it yummy, this, they are less likely to eat that thing again. They are less, that positive reinforcement is not having reinforcing outcomes on the child. And it's a tricky one, because you think, well, being a cheerleader, that's another thing actually within motivational interviewing. Don't be a cheerleader all the time, understanding when that's appropriate and when it's not. Because it can lead to shame and avoidance when they fail, and therefore they're going to let you down. Humans are very complex, aren't they? It's, I don't think a psychology degree really is ever preparing someone to be a great counselor or psychologist. It's the clinical training, it's the further study, it's the working with mentors. And as a nutritionist, and this is something that we push hugely, is the stuff like the motivational interviewing, the consultation techniques. This is why we are creating amazing graduates, because we teach them the real science of nutrition, the things that really work, the guiding principles that actually lead to outcomes that people are after. Not a macro split is not going to make any difference, some crazy clever ratio or carb cycling that other nutrition courses are teaching and rubbish like that. We teach the underpinning science and what needs to happen to lead to an outcome, and then we hone in on the behavior change of what, or even actually the methods used to, that can, whether that's the habits around their foods, or the way that meals are constructed, or the changing in macronutrients, or the changing in a food that leads to the change in the macronutrients that leads to the physiological effect that we're trying to have. But then how to actually get people to do those things. So the behavior change, the psychology, the consultation technique, the discussion. When I say that stuff out loud, I'm like, flipping heck, our course is really flipping good. And then how to get clients, the business stuff. But anyway, off topic. So in these instances with family members, I talked about children there. With family members, and even with potential clients or people, whoever, friends, sometimes not fighting them is the best thing you can do. Because if you have to play the long game, sometimes you have to let the friend or client or family member fail rather than fighting them on a topic. So I said to this person who contacted me today, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you a great answer, because I'm going to tell you there's nothing you can do necessarily. I've said before on this podcast, no amount of science is going to change someone's feelings on their experience. So if I have experienced something in life, I've had some epiphany, I've had some higher being or out of body experience, no science is going to change what I felt. And again, other things of, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, is another great thing to remind yourself. Once someone knows the place that you're coming from with giving them some advice, this is in friendships and relationships as well, completely outside of nutrition. If someone understands that the advice you're giving them or the stuff that you're saying is coming from a good place, to want to help them, it just is received in a totally different way. So if someone is doing something, if someone comes to you and asks your advice on something, you have to be able to read between the lines and read the situation. I have situation, Martin, what do you think of this? Okay, it's not evidence-based, it's made up. You can see that they're not, maybe go to them and ask them for a reference of what this based on, but I can tell you. And then they'll come back to me and say, but. I actually hate the word but, and I make my staff not start sentences with but, because it doesn't give off the right message. It shows almost a lack of teachability. And it also, if they start a sentence with but, have they really considered listening to hear rather than listening to respond? They just want to get their point of view across rather than listening and understanding and going, yeah, I get that. And then if they go, but have you considered? Whereas sometimes it's just, but what about? And instantly it's just trying to not hearing the other person. So if someone comes back to me and says, but how can they be saying this? But why are people getting such great results? Immediately I understand I can't go in and be overconfident or arrogant in my response. I don't know if arrogant is quite the right word. Sure. Because I wouldn't necessarily do it in an arrogant way or in a pig-headed way, but I can't do it in a way of dismissive. If someone goes to me, Martin, what do you think of this? And I'm like, absolute crap. And they go, thanks, man, just wanted to double check. That's what I thought. Cool. End of story. If someone goes, hi, Martin, I had this the other day. So, my trainer said this or someone said this, what do you think? And I was like, I just literally said, lol, whatever. And they said, I just wanted to ask the oracle. If someone calls you the oracle, you're believing it. Right? Whatever comes out of my mouth, they're taken as gold. And I don't abuse that, but it is the sense of all they want is just reinforcement. They've questioned it themselves. They want the reinforcement. But when you're with a family member, when you're with someone who's just, they've been taken up on something, there is virtually no point in attacking it, in trying to change their mind. And this is the advice I want to give to those of you who want to help family members. Just going, well, watch this video by Martin McDonald. Well, listen to this podcast. They're not going to. They're not going to spend 40 minutes of their time wasting listening to someone who's telling them that they're wrong. They don't know me from Adam. They don't know me from a bar of soap. One of an MNU graduate who I'm quite close with said that to me the other day. Oh, I don't know him from a bar of soap. I was like, I've never heard that phrase before. So you're not going to convince them in the same way that when a vegan goes, well, watch this YouTube video, we'll watch this Netflix film and it'll change your mind. And this is why I do love the position that I'm in, because if I'm doing, I remember doing a Facebook Live once, and I talked about the difficult subject of females who have lost their menstrual cycle when they've dieted for a bikini competition or a photo shoot. And time again, I hear people saying, I've regained weight, I've put on some body fat and it's still not come back, and I'm really screwed and I'm waiting and I don't know what to do and I need what supplements, this, that and the other. And when I talk to individuals about this, it's really difficult for me to say to them, you're still being restrictive. You're still pushing your body into a state where it doesn't want your menstrual cycle to come back. You are still a bit too obsessed with your food and your body fat and your body weight. It's difficult, and I have those conversations, and sometimes they go well. Often they go well, but sometimes they don't hit home for them to actually take action. However, on a Facebook Live, I can be a bit more blasé. No one feels attacked because I'm talking to the audience and I go, look, women, you don't like to hear this. Fitness competitors, you don't like to hear this. But you need to get fatter. You need to up your calories significantly. Very often what you're doing is you are still over exercising and you are still under eating. And just because you've put on a few kilograms post show, and even you might almost be back to where you were before, you need to go up. And there are other things you need to consider. If your period hasn't come back, the standard advice is make sure you just go and see your doctor, right? Doctors are often absolutely rubbish, and I hear that and I understand that, females who have dealt with the medical system. Some aren't, some are, I get that. But at least going if you've got any other symptoms, because there are other serious reasons that your menstrual cycle might have stopped, lost your period. So that's the standard advice. But I get it, like they're not always that helpful and they don't always listen, and that's a different discussion. But me being able to just go, look, you're still kind of cray around food, and I can't say that directly to their face because they feel attacked, and I'm saying it from a place of love and a place of help and a place of, I know my stuff, you need to listen to me. But it's this situation we're discussing in this podcast. Unless someone's coming to me and asking my advice, and often someone will come and ask my advice, but they do want me to tell them what they want to hear, and they'll set their question up in that way, or they're coming to ask me about what supplement they should take, but they don't want me to say get fatter because they are scared of that and because they don't want their body to be that way. But unfortunately, if they want their period for whatever reason is they want it, they might need to stop obsessing over calories, and they might need to exercise a bit less just to let the body start functioning the way it is again. And it's not to say that they're destined to be that way. Like, I have worked with many athletes who have been able to maintain their menstrual function at a very different, what we'll call settling point of body fat, and whilst training hard, but it does take time. And for you not to absolutely destroy your body into a state where your menstrual cycle stops. But it might just be that if you want your menstrual cycle to have a baby, whatever, you can't look the way that your sponsor wants you to look, or you feel comfortable in whatever situation. And there's other things you can work on there, obviously, but these are the cold hard facts. And so me being able to say this stuff on the Instagram Live, and I literally had people after it, sorry, it wasn't Instagram, it was Facebook, messaging me and going, I really needed to hear this. Like, and the difference in the reaction of them, me not talking to them not feeling attacked by me, it's a nice privileged position. The same with this podcast. Maybe some people will hear this and go, maybe this is me. Anyway, so it's cool. And so here's the other thing is, very often, this is why I'm using almost this terminology, like don't look. You're not looking at your friend. You're not looking at your family. You're not looking at your client. But And sometimes family will just never trust you. Like my mum still thinks she knows more than me on nutrition, right? She's teaching me nutrition. She's the stuff she goes out with is unbelievable. Yeah, drinking tea so it absorbs some of the calories from the chocolate you eat, and that's how it's just mind-blowing. But being the expert, this is another thing we discuss within the case studies residential, the full with honours course of Mac Nutrition Uni, is you position yourself not at them, not in an arrogant way, not in a fake it till you make it way, but you are the consultant. You are the oracle. You are the person with all the knowledge. If you don't want my advice, don't take it. That's fine. I will talk to these people. I will present to these 30 people who have come to my talk to listen to my advice. And then your family member, he sees that and it's like, other people are listening to them. This, we call it social proof, is helpful for getting people to, okay, this person may know what they're talking about. And again, that can be abused, of course, but I want good people to at least be using these things so that people understand that, they are the expert, they are the consultant, they are the one with the knowledge. So, and so some final advice is in this situation, it's very much how the discussion goes. It's tone of voice, you need to take a step back and really act with empathy, which sucks. There's a saying actually, the highest form of knowledge is empathy, because you have to, can't remember, put yourself in someone else's shoes or something. But anyway, I remember when I read it, I was like, it's true in that being able to act with empathy, being able to act almost in someone else's mind and thoughts and feelings shows much more intelligence than just knowing some facts and blurting them out. So having a discussion in this situation, it's like, look, I get it that your ailment, I don't want to say what the ailment is because I don't want to necessarily give this person's situation away in case whatever. I mean, there could be thousands. The number of people who contact me, it could be anyone. But anyway, I'm being careful for some reason. I don't know why. I'm not always. I get that your ailment is you're really struggling with. I am really happy to go and learn, or I already know this information around it. I can look into that thing. I get that you maybe have been taken on by it, and you know what? It really isn't correct. I've looked into this. I've even done a bit of research for you. I'm not going to attack you about it. I'm not saying this is how you talk exactly, but I'm just giving you the feelings behind what you should be saying. And I'll walk the journey with you, and because at the end of the day, if something doesn't work, they fail, and you want them not to feel judged. They want you, this is it, right? You need to not be the person that they feel like is going to go, I told you so. Because I told you so is the worst feeling for someone you want to help long term. Because if they think the response they're going to get from you when they fail is, I told you so, you've lost. If you genuinely want to help them, you need them to feel safe that when they fail, they come to you and they go, you were right. And you go, I'm really glad that you've found that out yourself. I'd love to be able to find stuff for you that does work. And the next time something comes up, and some people, I get it, they're exasperating because they're on to the next crazy thing. But, the word love's funny, isn't it, when you use it in the sort of science sense, but we all get it. Love and empathy and whatever. Like in this situation of a friend, a family member, the thing you should be acting on is love. And also take a step back, self-reflection. Is that really what you're acting on? Is it really love? Or is it just annoyance? You're fed up of them. They've been like this all their life. And if that is it, you're not going to work. Like all you're doing is annoying yourself. Just step out of this situation. It's not making your life any better. If you want to do something, if you truly want to help, if that genuinely is your motivation, then start acting with love, and it'll change your actions anyway. Start acting with empathy. You're not going to convince them if it becomes a discussion, an argument, a head-to-head. It's not how these things work. Cool. I've enjoyed that. I really, really hope there's some food for thought for you, for both practitioners who work with clients, but also those of you who are just health nuts who listen to my podcast, enjoy it when you maybe are talking to friends and family members, and sons and daughters and mums and dads. And not that they're not family members, but like, it's a big topic, and I want to tackle it at some point. But it's almost one like I'd rather talk about cancer and nutrition, which is obviously very serious, than really exactly how parents should exactly be talking to their children about food, and children that, you know, are being told that they're overweight and obese at school and these kind of things. You know, I've started to get a load of messages from people saying that just because recently with the whole Boris thing, and we're going to start weighing children because blah, blah, blah. Like, it's horrific. I really, 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 really do not stand by the way it's implemented, but we're in an imperfect world. People are like, nutrition should be taught in schools. Brilliant. Who's going to teach it? Because most people are morons. Even people who are sort of evidence-based, like, I've, been reading about nutrition. I know that carbs aren't going to make you fat, this, that, and the other. But when you're just talking about nutrition, like, the best thing for most people is to not talk about it. That would be the best thing. Don't discuss nutrition. I've not taught my child that they're obese, the BMI is obese, or that they're overweight. And I don't really know what to do, but the best, what I've done is I've just talked to them about calories, and I'm like, and it's difficult for me because I don't want them to feel judged. But don't, like, as a nutritionist, someone who has dedicated their whole life to nutrition, I have never talked about calories with my children, and I'm sure I'll have to because some other idiot will. Not naming any names of someone who might share their DNA. But, unfortunately, I'm not the only person who's impacting my children. Schools are, other people are, other children are, whatever. And so I might have to then, unfortunately, do the best of bad options. I would rather never have to discuss those things. But really, I think many people don't start talking to your kids about calories. Kids don't need to know about calories. Change their environment. Change your habits. Don't talk about your body, your weight. It's something I do want to talk about because I sort of feel led to. And I feel like who's better to do it than me? Actually, there are better people to do it than me, but maybe they don't have podcasts, for instance. And maybe, I don't really intend to have guests because it's just adding to my workload. And this is something obviously I just do in my quote unquote spare time. But anyway, yeah, I'll finish on this, like, about children. If you become concerned about your child's weight, don't start talking to them about it. Like, society will tell them they're overweight, and you need to be not that. You need to be the safe place. You need to be the person who doesn't see them for that and doesn't start talking to them about that and doesn't start moaning at them to eat more vegetables. You just need to be the person who provides space for them to be active, that provides a lifestyle that is active, that they're not constantly bombarded by an environment that's full of junk food, that you're not constantly eating junk food in front of them and not eating your vegetables and they're copying you, etc., etc. And that they don't end up with shame around food and they don't end up feeling like they need to hide stuff from you or etc. Anyway, flipping heck, deep, right? Not as much humour in this podcast as usual, but I hope this is the kind of crap I want to talk about. Deep stuff, meaningful stuff that changes the world in the teeny tiny way that I can. Right, much love. Until next time, take care.